r/NoSleep. Posted by u/FatCarnotaurus. Never trust a shapeshifter. Some of us don't have full control. Well, if you haven't found out from the title, I can turn into something different. If you already think that this is ridiculous, then don't read any further because it only gets crazier from here. The problem is that I don't have full control over when I shapeshift, and I can't fully control myself in my other form. I don't know if there's any other like me, who could explain me if this is how shapeshifting works, or am I doing something wrong? And now on to the interesting part. First of all, I can only turn into one thing, and it's basically a dinosaur. Some sort of megaraptor to be exact. Yes, those were a thing. Google it up if you don't be alive me. I think it's because I loved, and still love, the Jurassic franchise, and one exact beast have always fascinated me. It was the Indoraptor, the hybrid from the Second World movie. I loved its design, movement, and basically everything about it. But I think I can only turn into existing things, or ones that existed at least at one point of time, and my body found the thing closest to my favorite movie monster. Normally I can transform whenever I want. The process takes about 15 minutes, but it can also happen randomly if I'm stressed or scared for a longer period of time. Fortunately, sudden emotion changes won't trigger it, otherwise I would probably have transformed in school, or at somewhere with a load of people around. I'm still somewhat conscious while I'm in my other form, but I think differently, and there are some complete blackouts. The biggest problem with this changed consciousness is that in my other form I think that hunting down people is a fun, harmless game which I can't resist. I started to shapeshift around the end of elementary school, probably because the loads of stress I was in because of the whole process of starting middle school. These were only short shifts, mostly at the middle of the night. At first I thought that this is a natural thing among humans, which nobody talks about, or at least nobody tells it to children for some reason. I didn't see how it's possible biologically, and I still don't really know, but I thought I would soon get my answers. Fortunately I didn't ask my parents, because I didn't have the best relationship with them, and started searching on the internet. When I found nothing but some old myths and werewolf stories, I got suspicious. I tried to ask people about it on some anonymous sites, but, of course, I got nothing apart from some shitty jokes. Then middle school started, and as I quickly got used to it, the random shapeshifts stopped, and I just kinda thought that I imagined the whole thing because of the stress I was in. Everything was going fine until I was invited to a camping trip out in the woods in our third year. The problem was I didn't really like some of the guys who were there, so I often walked around the camp at dawn to prevent myself from interacting with them, and on one of these occasions I randomly thought about trying to shapeshift to confirm if it was real. I walked deeper into the forest, while I tried to concentrate on the icky feeling which I usually felt when it started back in elementary school. And suddenly it started. My body was icky everywhere, and after a short time, my out here parts started to transform. I don't really want to describe it, but you can probably imagine what it looks when someone turns into a dinosaur. When it was over, and I got over my shock, I started doing things I think everyone would do if they found out that they can switch forms, like testing my speed, agility and senses. I think it was around this time when the others noticed that I was missing for too long and started searching. At first I only heard their voices calling for me, and it was at this point that my new side kicked in. I could only describe it as somehow feeling unreal. Like when you play a video game and troll your friend by killing his character. So instead of trying to swift back, or run towards him to show off my newfound form, I stayed behind the bushes. When the guy walked in front of me, I started following him deeper into the woods, with making as little noise as I could. But you can't go completely without sound as something a bit larger than a human, and on top of that I wasn't too good with moving in my new form back then. And because of this, at one point the guy started to get nervous. He walked faster, and constantly looked around in the darkening forest. And that was the moment I striked. I jumped out of the bushes with ease, and landed on the back of the guy. My feathers softened the land for me, but that wasn't the case for the poor fella. He got his head stuck between the jaws of a thing he shouldn't even seen in his life, and then two razor-sharp claws ripped into his back, cracking his spine, and spilling blood on the forest floor. I was so excited. And now to the part where he gets up, calls me a dick for scaring the living shit out of him, and then we laugh it off. Or at least I thought something like this. But then the realization slowly started to kick in. I don't know when I transformed back, but in a short time I stood there in my human form, slowly processing the fact that I just killed someone. Around 10 minutes later, when the others found me, I still stood in shock, holding a huge black feather, one of my own fucking feathers, in my hands. Because I couldn't really talk, they kinda created a story themselves which seemed fitting. Jeff, let's call him this, was attacked by a bear while he searched for me, and he was already dead when I arrived, following the sounds. The story seemed really fitting, so even the police and the rangers believed it, although one ranger noted that the victims of bear attacks usually look kinda different of this. Months passed, and I think I would have started to believe the bear story as well, if the feeder wasn't there. I tried searching for similars both in libraries and on the internet, but I wasn't able to find anything on either. I was even thinking about showing ITTO my biology teacher, but I was afraid that she would send ITTO some professional, and then people would start skiing things which I might not want to answer. So the large black feather with white spots stayed in my room until my mother accidentally broke it and threw it out. But at this point I didn't really need it anymore, because I started going out to abandoned places to shapeshift, and learn about myself, so I could have got more if I really wanted to. There was a point when I thought that I mastered my ability. I didn't transform randomly in the night, and I could move perfectly in the Megaraptor form. And then I made the biggest mistake of my life. I thrusted myself. There was a girl in school who I really liked. Well, I had a little churs on her, fuck it. I was head over heels, as most of the guys of my age feel with some girls. And she kinda liked me back, but neither of us was brave enough to make that first step. And then I had the fantastic idea of showing her my shape-shifting ability. I thought that everything would be fine, because I liked her, and didn't think that I would hurt her under any circumstances. And she was a horse rider, so I thought that if she can handle big animals, she will be able to kinda tame the raptor. The problem with this is that horses are prey animals, and therefore they react differently than a similar-sized carnivore. And so I told her nearly everything. I think that she didn't believe me at first. Well, of course she didn't. Would you believe any of your friends if they said that they can turn into a fucking dinosaur? But she accepted it. She probably thought that this is a part of my broken humor, and this was my way of asking her out, and I would finish the joke on the date. So we went to walk in a nearby forest on a lovely afternoon. I liked the place, because at that time there were basically no people using it, so I could be there without the risk of being seen. We walked for a bit, chatting about normal things, and when I felt like we are far enough from the road, I stopped and told her to wait there, as I walked into the woods, to transform. I didn't want her to see the whole process, because I thought it probably looks kinda unsettling. She probably believed that I will jump out from the bushes in some shitty costume, so she was more than surprised when I emerged in my other form. I thought everything was good, as I didn't have the urge to attack. I knew that she is too important to scare, so I waited patiently while she started to slowly get closer. She spoke, and from the tone of her voice, I knew that she was probably asking something, but I didn't understand it. She slowly got closer, and then she touched the feathers on my back, so gently that I hardly felt anything. I turned over to take a good look on her, and memorize her scent, so I won't accidentally attack her somehow. But then she made a deadly mistake. She probably thought that I was about to attack as I slightly opened my mouth to feel the scent better. I noticed that doing it somehow helps, so she took some steps backwards and tried to shoo me. That probably would have worked on something else, but that degenerated raptor brain thought something like, "Oh, so you try to scare me? Let's see what happens if I scare you." So I screeched at her, and flapped with my arms, then started to slowly walk towards her. I still didn't want to hurt her, but of course, she didn't know that. She yelled something at me multiple times, and then, as I didn't stop, she picked up a rock, and threw it at me. It was small, but it hit a bad spot on my nose, so it kinda hurt. And that was the point the beast fully kicked in. "You hit me. You attacked. Traitor." Or something similar went through my head as I started growling, and running towards her. I think she wanted to run. But it was too late. I jumped. It was somewhat similar to the other time, except that she landed on her back. My jaws snapped her neck, as the two giant claws on my hands ripped into her stomach and crest, turning the once beautiful girl into something unrecognizable. I don't know how I didn't succeed at ending my life. I tried. Multiple times. But somehow none of the attempts were successful. I don't know if it's because I'm a shapeshifter, and my body reacts differently to things. Her body was never found. No one knew where we were going, and although the police searched the forest, at that point some animals probably made a quick work of the body. The other thing is that recently I started going into that same forest at night. I don't remember anything, but there's a rumor in the city that the local deer population is declining. As if there's new large predators started hunting them, and I don't eat a lot during the day. I'm simply not really hungry, even in my human form. So if there are any others here, or some people or supernatural, or something who met other shapeshifters, or knows how to teach me to manage my powers, please just help. I'm afraid of what would happen if some guy's gone camping into that forest, for example.